Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we unpack the financial secrets hidden in plain sight. And today we're diving into Graham Corporation's 2025 proxy statement. Get ready, because this one's got a few interesting moves and some numbers that really tell a story. So what's the big deal with this filing? Well, it's all about telling shareholders what's happening at Graham Corporation, especially with their upcoming annual meeting, and a look at how they pay their top executives. Think of it as the company's annual report card, but with a bit more detail on who's making the big bucks and why. And if you like getting the real story behind company finances, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and join our Discord community linked below for even more insider discussions. Scroll Pempson CN 25 Prox Day Statement Scroll. Alright, let's get right into it. This document is a proxy statement, which means Graham Corporation is asking its shareholders to grant them permission or a proxy to vote their shares at the upcoming annual meeting. This meeting happens on August 26th of 2025 and it's all happening online, which is pretty standard these days. What are they voting on? Well, the main events are the election of 3 directors, an advisory vote on executive pay, and ratifying their auditor Deloitte & Touche. Pretty standard, but the details in these reports often reveal a lot about what's really going on. Looking at the directors, we see a few names that are up for re-election. There's Kari L. Sherrislowski, Matthew J. Malone, and Jonathan W. Painter. Malone is the president and CEO, and Thorin is the executive chairman. It's always interesting to see who's on the board and what their background is. For instance, Jonathan Painter has a pretty impressive history as chair of Cadont Inc. Graham Corporation itself is a global player in some pretty complex industries, focusing on fluid, power, heat transfer, and vacuum technologies. They serve defense, energy, and space markets. Think of big machines that cool things down or move fluids under tough conditions. Their brands are Graham Manufacturing, Barber-Nichols, and P3 Technologies. Now let's talk about how you can actually vote. If you're a shareholder, you can do it online, by phone, or by mail. And to attend the virtual meeting, you actually have to register in advance to get your unique link. It's important to remember that even if you plan to attend, it's best to vote your proxy beforehand, so your vote is counted just in case. The board is recommending a for vote on all 3 proposals. For electing directors, it's a plurality vote, meaning the ones with the most votes win. The advisory vote on executive pay is non-binding, but it's a crucial signal of shareholder sentiment. And ratifying the auditor is a standard procedure. What's key here is that for director elections, directors need just 1 for vote to be elected, and if they get more withheld votes than for votes, they have to offer to resign. This is where things usually get heated. We're talking about how they compensate their top executives, the named executive officers. They've decided to be quite transparent, even more so than smaller reporting companies are required to be. Let's dive into the compensation discussion and analysis, or CD&A. This section explains their pay philosophy, which is all about aligning executive interests with shareholder interests. They want executives rewarded for performance that boosts shareholder value. For fiscal year 2025, Graham Corporation saw some solid results. Net sales went up by 13% to $209.9 million, and net income shot up a massive 168% to $12.2 million. Orders were also strong at 2.1 million. That's a good sign that the company is performing well. The Compensation Committee's philosophy is built on a pay-for-performance model. A big chunk of executive pay is at risk, meaning it depends on meeting certain goals or staying with the company. They use things like restricted stock units and performance stock units that only vest if goals are met. This pay-for-performance idea is reinforced by requiring executives to own substantial company stock. They also don't offer any tax gross-ups, which is a good sign that they're not trying to give executives a secret bonus. Plus, their executive compensation programs are designed to avoid encouraging excessive risk-taking. Now for the juicy part, the actual pay. For Daniel J. Thorin, our executive chairman and former CEO. His total compensation in fiscal 2025 was $1,853,374.40. That includes his salary, stock awards, and non-equity incentive compensation. Compare that to fiscal 2024, where his total was $2,025, where his total was $2,021.40. So there's a bit of a decrease there. Looking at the all other compensation category for Mr. Thorin in 2025, it breaks down into 6,260, 70, 70, 70, 70, 213 contributions, and 11,2,401 of contributions, and 11,2,401 Ken contributions. This table shows the grants of incentives made during the year. For Daniel J. Thoren, we see grants of performance stock units, or PSUs, and restricted stock units, or RSUs. The PSUs have a potential payout that depends on things like revenue and return on invested capital targets over 3 years. They also have employment agreements with all their top brass. Daniel J. Thoren has an agreement that transitions him from CEO to executive chairman with a base salary of $250,000 and a commitment to work about 30 hours a week. This shows what equity awards were still outstanding and unvested at the end of fiscal 2025. For Mr. Thoren, there were a significant number of RSUs and PSUs still to vest with a market value of over $3.5 million. It shows he's got serious skin in the game, which aligns with that pay for performance philosophy. Interestingly, only Alan E. Smith, VP and General Manager of Batavia, is eligible for pension and supplemental retirement plans. For him, the present value of his accumulated benefit in the retirement income plan was over $1.1 million. This is quite a perk for any executive. This next table is a direct comparison of how much executives were paid versus how the company performed. For fiscal year 2025, the compensation actually paid to the CEO, Daniel J. Thoren, was about $27 million, while the average for other top execs was about $1 million. Let's look at the company's performance metrics, like net income, which was $12.2 million in 25 and 20 performance metrics, like net income, which was $12.2 million in 2025, a huge jump from $4.6 million in 2025, a huge jump from $4.6 million in 2025. It seems like executive pay, especially for the CEO, has a strong link to positive company performance. Now, let's touch on director pay. Independent directors get an annual cash retainer, which was $55,000 for 2025, and also stock awards. For instance, each independent director got around $75,000 worth of RSUs. This is pretty typical for board members who oversee the company's direction. Looking at the table, Jonathan W. Painter, the lead independent director, had the highest total compensation among the independent directors at $181,343, which makes sense given his role. This is the famous say-on-pay vote. Shareholders are asked to approve the executive compensation. Last year's vote was overwhelmingly in favor, with about 99% in support. The company plans to hold this vote annually. This is straightforward. Deloitte and Touche handled their audits for 2025 and will continue to do so for 2026. The fees paid to Deloitte and Touche were $837,040, $79,095 in 2009,000 The audit committee has reviewed these financials and is confident in Deloitte's independence. They've met 4 times during fiscal year 2025, keeping a close eye on the company's financial reporting. Here's something that always catches my eye. Barber-Nichols, a subsidiary, has lease agreements with Ascent Properties LLC. Daniel J. Thoren, the executive chairman, holds the majority interest in Ascent Properties. The lease payments in fiscal year 2025 were $1.0 million. While this isn't necessarily bad, it's a related party transaction that the audit committee reviews to ensure fairness. Looking at major shareholders, Brandeis Investment Partners holds about 10.3% of the company's stock. BlackRock and Vanguard are also significant holders. This table shows how much stock is owned by insiders. Daniel J. Thoren, the executive chairman, holds a significant number of shares, about 3.2% of the company. Combined, all directors and top executives own about 6% of the company, showing insider alignment with shareholder interest. Now let's talk about my take on Graham Corporation. They've clearly had a strong fiscal year 2025, with significant growth in net income. The executive compensation, while substantial, appears to be tied to this performance, which is a positive sign for shareholders. The focus on performance-based stock awards and strong insider ownership aligns their interests with the long-term success of the company. The lease agreement with Ascent Properties is something to keep an eye on, but it's reportedly reviewed annually by the audit committee. A key strength is their diversified business sectors serving defense, energy and space, which provides some resilience. However, executive pay, especially when stacked up against the company's overall earnings, might be something shareholders closely scrutinize, even with the performance link. The growth in net income is the star here, showing the company is executing well. Alright, that's our breakdown of Graham Corporation's latest filing. What's your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this analysis was valuable, hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.